Good evening. Mazel tov to all the Messiahim and Maseches Bava Metzia. Baruch Hashem. We are ready to get started with the largest Masechta in Shas, but only by pages, not by words. Brachos takes the cake for most pages in words. That's because of all of the super lengthy Agaditas. One of the things that you'll find in this Masechta is that Rashi's commentary stops on Daf Chaf Tes, and his grandson, the Rashbam, takes over. So if you did a comparative analysis of average number of words per page before Chaf Tes versus after, you'd find that there's quite a significant difference. And many of the blot in the later parts of the Masechta, as you can see, just flipping through, some of them are tiny, 4, 5, 6 lines. There are a couple of lengthy Agaditas, beautiful ones that we're going to learn later in the Masechta. But we're going to start now on Daf Beis at a fresh Mishnah. We'll be learning a blot and a half per our regular Thursday regimen. We'll be learning until the last of the short lines, really the first of the middle width lines on Gimel Amud Aleph. We're actually going to be skipping about 12 lines on Gimel Amud Aleph, as we'll soon see. Today we're going to be talking about whether or not Hezek Re'iyah is Shmei Hezek or not. Is looking at something, the potential of causing it damage. We saw a reference to this just recently in Bava Metzia in regards to the seeming isser to look at someone's field as the field is growing. So if you're driving through southern Illinois, are you allowed to look at the fields and comment or even look? What are you allowed to do? Would we halachically be obligated to build a fence, as we'll soon see today, to prevent people from causing that damage? Good. We're going to start with the Tosfos, actually, just so that we have a reminder of what we're talking about here. This first parak is called Hashutfin. Let's just remember that Kulan Zikin Chad Masechtahi, that really all the Bavas are really one Masechta. So if we would have put them all together, it would have been 120 plus 120 plus 175, which is a lot. It's over 400 blot. It would have been 415 blot, give or take. So I guess silver lining that it's been broken into 3 parts. I don't know, but the size of this Masechta is like, I'm gonna be like jacked by December when we're done. This thing is like 15 pounds. I got to go find one without Rishonim in the back. So let's get started. Baruch Hashem, starting the 23rd Masechta in Shas. What'd you say? Yeah, that's a word that people use to reference the medieval scholars who comment on the Talmud. Right. Things that we don't do. Yeah, no, I don't know where you're. I don't know. There we go. I feel like Ali Stefanski right now. We need to start learning. We gotta no intros. We gotta get into it. All right. Hashutfin. Here we go. Hashutfin, they're partners. So you and I share a field, or share a chatzer, more accurately. Shiratu lasos mechitza b'chatzer. You and I share a chatzer. And what we want to do, we want to split the field in half with a mechitza. Usually the word mechitza is easily translated. We'll have to figure out exactly what that means in a moment. So the halacha is bonen esa kosel be'emtza. So what that means is we build the wall immediately in the middle. So let's say that it's 15 feet, right? So the very center of that room, meaning half of that space is going to eat, the wall will eat up half of your space. The wall will eat up half of my space. That's what it means be'emtza. B'makom shanagu livnos, gvil, gazis, kfisin, and levain. And these are different types of bricks. Gvil is an unfinished brick. Gazis is a finished brick. Kfisin are half bricks, and levainin were the typical standard bricks. Ki'ilu, the ones that you'd see on the average Georgian house, would be their levainim. They each had specific sizes, as we'll soon see in the Mishnah. And then the Gemara says, and Mishnah says, 4th line, Akol Kiminaga Medina, which sounds like a double. You just told me what the rule is, so I don't know what you're talking about. We'll see. Gvil, if we are talking about Gvil, which is this unfinished product, Zen Nosen Gimel Tvachim, Zen Nosen Gimel Tvachim, these were large uncut bricks. They were about 6 Tvachim. They were very large, which meant that each of us, if I'm sharing the property with you, each of us would have to give up 3 Tvachim in the dead center line of the Chatzer. If it was begazis, gazis is a finished brick. Zen nosen tvachim umechza, v'zen nosen tvachim umechza. They shaved it down. It's not 3 tvachim anymore. It's 2.5. I give 2.5 for the wall. You give 2.5 for the wall, and shalom al Yisrael. Bikfisin, if we're talking about half bricks, zen nosen tvachim, v'zen nosen tvachim. Each one gives 2. Bilavainim, which is our typical bricks. Zen nosen tevach umechza, v'zen nosen tevach umechza. A lot of articulated detail around the same principle. Lefichach, therefore, because of the principles that we've just learned, im nafal hakosel, if the wall falls, hamakom v'ha'avanim shel shneim. Therefore, the makom, the ground that the wall stands on, v'ha'avanim, and the stones that were the wall, those are split. Their shel shneim. They get split evenly. V'chein begina. The same thing would be true in a garden. already our brain should be saying, why are you adding anything about a garden? Who cares what the property type is? We'll see soon that there's a possible nafkamina. The Gemara is going to bring that up. If there is a minhag in a garden to put up a fence, then to put up a mechitza, I don't want to say fence yet because we don't know what the separation is, then mechayiv also. Aval bibika, if you're in an open field in a valley, then makom shenagu shelo ligdor, if it's customary in that place to not put up a geder, ein mechayiv also, then if you and I are sharing that bika, I, who might want that mechitza, can't force you to put up the mechitza. So that's like an interesting interplay question. If I want something as a partner, do I get to hold a cloud over you? How much power do I have as a partner? 50-50 partner. Can I demand of you to help pay for a wall that will separate our field? Ella imratza kones l'soch shalo vona. If I want to build a wall, I can do so, but I have to build it l'soch shalo. I don't build it over the middle line. I build it on my side of the middle line. So just imagine the Gemara in front of you. The right side of the page is yours. The left side of the page is the other guy. You want to build a wall? No problem. Your neighbor doesn't want to split? All right. Don't put it in the center. Put it on your side of the line. No problem. That's mutter. And then we'll put a chazis on the outside. Rashi says we're going to talk about this more, but what it basically means is that there's a sign that says, this hereby notifies everybody that this wall stands in my property and not shared space, because if the wall falls, we want to know who it belongs to. So we're being modia. We put up a chazis, a little bit of a little sign that says this wall, this is on the Karesh side of the wall. It's not on the shiur side of the wall. That's what the Gemara says. Because it's on my side of the line. If the wall and the bika was built by both, then if we in the bika, because we have to be careful with our cases here, the bika was a case where it's not standard to put up a wall. If you do put up a wall and it's in the middle, you have to put a sign on both sides. 50% of this wall and the space underneath it belongs to me, and you'll put a sign on your side of the wall that says the same exact thing. Seems simple enough. We're soon going to see that it's not so simple, because that's usually what happens in the Gemara. Because Rabbi Yehuda Nasi packed in so much into a Mishnah. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's true. I didn't even think about that, but there's a bunch. Yeah. That's true. Okay, the Gemara says, Savruha, it seems that we understand from here that my mechitza, it seems from the basic reading of our Mishnah, that a mechitza is a guda. Rashi, guda, kosel. Word guda in Aramaic, remember gud achis and gud asik. These are languages that we had many, many moons ago. In Hilchos Shabbos and Eruvin, we discussed it. In Sukkah, it came up in a bunch of places. A guda is a wall, Kidatanya. How do we know that the word mechitza references a wall? The Brisa writes, mechitza sakerem shenifritza. If we have a mechitza, let's leave it as the word mechitza and not define it yet. And it's a mechitza of a kerem. I have a vineyard on my side. You're growing wheat on the other. They're not allowed to grow together. That's kilaim. That's not allowed. So I own the vineyard. You own the wheat farm. And the wall broke down. Omer lo gdor, and it was your responsibility. And I say, hey, the wall broke. Please fix it. Chazra v'nifritza, so you do. And then the wall broke again. Omer lo gdor. And then you fix it again. And then as we turn to the top of Beis Mid Beis, Nisyai Shemen V'lo Gadol. And then you started slacking a little bit, even though it really did require to be fixed. You didn't fix it. So what's the halacha? Hareza Kidesh. That, of course, causes a problem. You who were supposed to patch the fence did not patch the fence. And now Hareza Kidesh, the language of Kidesh is a funny word when we translate it literally. What it means in this case is that you violated the Isra of Kilayim. A little bit of a funky usage. It's based on the psukim, and therefore v'chayev ba'achrayuso, the person is going to be chayev. The person who should have put up the fence is going to be chayev. So, what does that show you about the word mechitza? Mechitza is not a conceptual wall. Mechitza is a wall. It's just otherwise. How do you end up with kilayim? It has to be that we're talking about an actual wall. Why what? What's the other word that you're talking about? Guda? Huh? The word guda? That's the Gemara's word. But I'm just saying that the Gemara is translating for us. Guda is Aramaic for wall. So like that would be like you saying, what is the mechitza? They're just writing Guda. The language of the Mishnah was mechitza. We're trying to figure out what the language of the Mishnah means. So here's what the Gemara says. Well, okay, I hear you. But Taima, what is the reason why we both built a wall in the first case of our Mishnah? If you look back, Hashutvin sheratzu la'asos mechitza, then put it on the 50-yard line. You take up half the space on your side. I take up half the space on mine. So the Gemara on the top of basement on the second line says, time of Ratsu. The only reason why I can obligate you is not, I can't obligate you. You wanted to build a wall with me. Hello, Ratsu ein mechayven oso. But if I want to build a wall and you don't want to build a wall, I'm not able to be mechayv you. What does that show you about hezek re'iyah? About the power of vision causing damage? That shows us alma hezek re'iyah lab shmei hezek. Because if in fact hezek re'iyah was shmei hezek, if in fact looking at something would cause a problem, then we should be obligated to build a wall, and your ratzon should have nothing to do with it. I don't care about your feelings. Your feelings don't matter, not to reality. Your feelings are completely irrelevant. If hezek re'iyah is real, and you say, I don't want a wall, I'll be like, I don't care what you feel, but there needs to be a wall. Elamai, the fact that our Mishnah says ratzu, that shows us that it's only if there's a ratzon. But if there isn't a ratzon of one of the people, no chiyuv to build a wall, therefore hezek re'iyah is lav shmei hezek. Be'ema, okay, I hear you. But be'ema mechitza is just plugta. Maybe the word mechitza just means to create a separation and not to build a wall. Kedichsiv, we have precedents for this in Chumash. The pasuk says in Bamidbar, the pasuk says vatihi. Where'd the pasuk go? Vatihi mechetzas ha'eda. And there, it was not talking about a wall. It was half of the nation. The kevan deratzu, and then if that's what the word plugta means, and kevan deratzu is talking about that they want to build a wall, then bonan esakosel bal korcho, then it might mean the opposite. Meaning, if what our Mishnah was saying that a mechitza is really not a mechitza is really not a wall, it's just a plukta, just a separation. But v'chevan deratzu, once there is a person who wants to build a wall, then we have to bonan esakosel bal korcho alma hezek riyashmei hezek. So we don't know how to read our Mishnah. We don't know if our Mishnah is talking about an actual wall, and therefore, when it says mechitza, and therefore hezek riyah is lav shmei hezek, or if it's exactly the opposite svara. Says the Gemara, ihachi, if it's true that hezek riyah is shmei hezek, why does it say sheratzu lasos mechitza? It shouldn't be shiratzu lasos mechitza. It should be shiratzu lachatzos, to separate. If what you're saying is that hezek riyah shmei hezek, so then the language in our Mishnah is wrong. It should have said shiratzu lachatzos. Elamai guda. Therefore, what does the word guda mean? It means elamai. It must therefore be guda. And what does it mean bonan esakosa? Hold on one second. If you're saying that it's actually a wall, then we have another linguistic issue with our Mishnah. What do you mean bonan esakosa? Bonan oso. We just said what it was. If you're saying that the word mechitza means wall, why does it have to say bonan esakosa? Just use the it. Why are you saying weird things? Just say what you mean to say. But bonan oso mi baile. Says the Gemara, we can't say oso. We had to be specific about it, what it was. Itana oso haba amina b'mesipas be'alma. I might have thought that it was just with a very simple kind of like pegs in the floor type of separation. Like sometimes on the highway, if you're going through like some of the tunnels, they have these little like freestanding poles, just so that if you hit them, they make a lot of noise, and then you go back in your lane. That's not a wall. That's not a wall. So says the Gemara, perhaps what we thought that the mechitza was in our Mishnah was b'mesipas be'alma, just this very light thing. Rashi speaks about this on the side. So kamash malan, that no, we are talking about a kosel, that the word kosel is defining mechitza. So says the Gemara. We're going to see another version of this at the top of Gimel Amud Aleph. And again, this requires a lot of unpacking, but there are at least two full different ways of understanding our Mishnah over here so far.
Like the 50-yard line, the pylon.
Yeah.
The boundary.
Yeah. Yeah, those kinds of things, that's b'mesipas be'alma.
The rabbi used the 50-yard line, I'm sticking with the same image.
Yeah, no, he's doing good. He's doing good.
But the little boundary mark.
It's the thing that sticks up. It's not a wall. It's not a wall. It's true. Yeah, I'm going to give you an A+ and a Mitsuyan sticker when we're done. It's amazing. Mitsuyan. Where's Mrs. Altram? So then our Mishnah, like Captain Obvious, tells us, you know what you should do if you both want to build a wall? Build it in the middle. I don't know, what is this, like kindergarten? Of course you build it in the middle. Where else were you going to build it? Says the Gemara Pshita. Huh? It is. But that wasn't even the Gemara's question. The Gemara's question was on saying that it was be'emtza. What do you mean? The Pashat is be'emtza. That should be obvious. So the Gemara says, Lo tzricha v'kadim chad v'ratzye lechabre. Perhaps my ratzon was different than yours. I tried to convince you of it. Now if I'm trying to convince you, then you have an upper hand, says the Gemara. I'm happy to split it as it relates to the airspace, but betashmishta, you want me to use up some of my ground? Lo israt soilach. And therefore, maybe if I'm trying to convince you, then I should give up my land and you should not have to give up yours because I want it more than you do. Kamash malan. Kamash malan that's not true, that it belongs on the 50-yard. Even if there's, again, we both are rotze. I'm rotze 80%, you're rotze 20%. It doesn't matter. Once you agree, we're 50-50 in regards to space. We don't shift that based on who wants it more. Good. That brings us to, we're a third of the way down on Beis and Beis. The Gemara says, okay, the Hezek Re'iyah Lav Shmei Hezek, that was one of the shitas that we saw here, that perhaps we could see that Hezek Re'iyah is actually not damaging. The Gemara says, I'm going to give you a siman of 6 different Mari Makomos. Here's the siman: Gina, Kosel, Kofin, V'cholkin, Chalonos, and the Reb Nachman. These are 6 different kashas against this question. The question says, wait 1 second. How can you say that Hezek Re'iyah is Lav Shmei Hezek? Question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's learn question number 1. All the questions are on this page. The Gemara says, Tashma, we said V'chein Begina. So that means that in a garden, we're trying to protect someone from damage, right? So therefore, how can you say Hezek Re'iyah is Lav Shmei Hezek? It must be Hezek Re'iyah Shmei Hezek if we say V'chein Begina in our Mishnah. It says Gemara, Gina shiny. Gardens are different. So now the Gemara is making a distinction between a Gina and a Chatzer. We would never have thought. Again, that's why I was hinting to this in the Mishnah. We would never have thought to say that there's a difference. From where we come from, a field is a field is a field. But we're not agricultural people. We buy corn in Jewel. We don't go out to the field and pluck corn. That's not what we do. So therefore, we just don't think the same way. But if you were an agricultural person, the yard in front of your house is very different than the cornfields. Very, it says we're not used to it. So the Mishnah says no. Gina shiny. Kid Rabbi Abba. Dam Rabbi Abba. Amar Rav Huna. Amar Rav. Aser le'adam lamod b'stei chavero b'shah shehi omedes b'komoseh. That that a person is not allowed to stand in the field of the friend and to admire all of the stalks. You're not allowed to do that. So therefore, we see that a gina is not the same. A gina where things are growing is different than a chatzer. They're very different. Chatzer is where that's my front yard. I don't have a lot going on in my front yard, but the gina, I grow stuff there. So maybe the gina has a higher level of sensitivity. Says the Gemara, no, you said v'chein. When you added gina to chatzer, you said v'chein, which means that they're the same. Don't tell me shiny gina. They're the same exact thing. So says the Gemara, when it said v'chein, it was talking about the rules of agvil v'gazis. It was saying that in the gina, the same rules that we would apply by gvil, gazis, kfisin, and levanim, those 4 brick types, same rules apply in the gina. But really, you're right. There's no difference between the gina and a chatzer. That's all question 1, where we try to upschlag the Gemara's Havamina, that Hezek Re'iyah is Lav Shmei Hezek. Here's number 2. Tashma, Kosel, Chatzer, Shenofal, Mechayv Oso Livnos Ad Daled Amos. If a wall of a Chatzer falls, we're obligated to build it up to what height? Up to Daled Amos. Why Daled Amos? Must be that we hold Hezek Re'iyah Shmei Hezek against our assumption. Says the Gemara, Nofal Shiny. This is a fascinating answer. When a wall falls, it's different because you're rebuilding a wall that was already there. You're not rebuilding the wall because of Hezek Re'iyah Shmei Hezek or not. It's a separate set of halachos. You're rebuilding it because the wall fell and there was a wall there and you need to put back the wall that was there. No, just up till 4. Meaning when you rebuild, it could be 10 amos. It's up to 4. It's not, right, correct. Says the Gemara, really, the Gemara, it could be like you're saying anyways, because the Gemara says this question was so ridiculous. Uda karila, my karila, the person who quoted this thing, that was it was a klotz kasha, so easy to answer, like the wall fell, so you go rebuild the wall. Who says that it's about Hezek Re'iyah B'chlal? So says the Gemara, you're right, I don't really need that Gemara for its own purpose, but rather Seifa Itzrichale, I need it for the Seifa. Says the Gemara, Midalit Amos ulamala, ein mechai benoso. That from Dalet Amos and above, just to teach me that when I rebuild a wall, your 10 amma wall, I only have to rebuild it up to Dalet Amos. That was what I was sharing with you, Stan. We don't have to go higher than that. That is the maximum. That brings us to question number 3. Remember that in the mnemonic, it said the word kofin. That's what we're going to see here, a little bit more than halfway down on Beis Beis. Toshma. Kofin oso livnos beis shar v'delas lechatzer. A person is obligated to build an entryway and a door to the chatzer. Why? This brisa, again, we're completely out of context because we're not learning this like the way we should, but the Gemara can learn from there. Shema Mino Hezek Rish Mehezek. You have to put a door up. Why do you have to put a door up? Maybe you have to put a door up because of Hezek Rish Mehezek. So again, kasha on our assumption. Says the Gemara, Hezek the Rabbim shiny. What does that mean? Hezek the Rabbim is different than Hezek the Yachid. Why is that? Rashi says, 10 lines from the bottom of the page, Hezek the Rabbim, Shekol b'nei Rishus harabim mistaklim sham. If you have a field that's in a public domain, there's a higher concern of Hezek Re'iyah there. And therefore you have to put it, but maybe not by a Yachid. So says the Gemara, what are you talking about? U'di Yachid lo? The only time we have a concern about Hezek Re'iyah is by Rabbim? That's Pashut not true. Here's a Raya Brura, Tashma, and this is our fourth question. Ein cholken es hachatzer ad sheyehei ba dalet amos lazeh v'dalet amos lazeh. When you and I are going to be breaking up a field with a wall or splitting up a field, that field has to be a minimum of 4 by 8, so that when I break it up, I have a 4 by 4 field, and you have a 4 by 4 field. Let's just imagine the Gemara is that. So if the field is this big, then we can split it in half. This is 4 by 4, and this is 4 by 4, but the whole thing is 4 by 8. So that's what the fourth question is highlighting, is that when we are going to be cholek a field, when we're going to split a chatzer, it has to be splittable. Not everything is splittable. If the whole yard is 4 by 6, so the result is that I get 4 by 3, that's not sufficient. That's not a chalukah. The chalukah is only reasonable between shutfin if we both result in a field that's daled al daled. Very interesting halacha. Mezuzah has a din like this, that there has to be an area of 4 by 4, not square footage. It's not the shape. Right? It's not. It doesn't have to be square, but the square footage has to be right. So the Gemara says, "Hayesh ba kadei lazeh uchadei lazeh cholken." So the Gemara says, but if there is a field that's large enough for shutfin to split, such that we each get a minimum of 4 by 4 length and width, then cholken. And how are we cholek? My la bekosa. Therefore, what do we see? We have to put up a wall. Therefore, Hezek Re'iyah Shmei Hezek. We're obviously concerned about Hezek about Hezek Re'iyah. Says the Gemara, Lav Dafka Mehechatesi. Who says that we're talking about a kosel? It doesn't say kosel anywhere. It doesn't even say mechitza. All it says is cholken. So therefore, look, I could have thought b'mesipas be'alma. Maybe that Mishnah Bryce is talking about something else. And that brings us to question number 5. 12 lines from the bottom. The Gemara says, Toshma hachalonos. If there are windows, bein milamala, bein milamata, in the space above the window or below, bein mikenegdan, or if I'm building a wall and it's opposite your house, I also need a distance of daled amos. If I'm building a wall and there's a window, and your house is across from me, or daled amos away from me, it has to be at least daled amos away. We have this in America. We have property lines. It's usually, 8 feet or something like that, or 8 feet, 6 feet in Chicago between homes. So we have rules. The Gemara says it's because of Hezek Re'iyah, and America says it's just because of the pin. I don't know if there's a svara behind it. I have no idea. Well, in New York, they don't have that. Like the townhouses where my aunt and uncle live in Queens, they're all townhouses. There's no separation at all. They're all. We have them too. The halacha said it's not because of like sneeze, not because of anything. Huh? But that's commercial. But here in our neighborhood, there is a rule of
in this single family, it's like different blocks.
Different areas, probably different zip codes, no? Yeah. What?
It's probably only single families and 2 flats. It's not anything bigger than that. Doesn't have to have a separation.
Even the bigger apartment buildings like down Greenleaf, those are also. So here the Gemara says that we had to keep daled amos if there's a window, not if there isn't a window, because we have to keep an element of tznius. The Tani Allah, and here's how we touch up this brisa. Milamalon kadesh lo yatzitz v'yireh. We need space above the window because we don't want to be able to see what we shouldn't see. Milamatan, if it's below kadesh lo yamod v'yireh, because then you can stand and see through the window. Michenegdan kadesh lo yabil, and we don't want the walls to be too close to one another because I don't want to shadow your home unnecessarily. Therefore, we see that we seem to be concerned about Hezekah. We seem to be concerned about what you can see and what you can't see. Question 5, the Gemara says, Hezekah dabai is shiny. When it comes to a person's house, that's a little bit different. Why? Take a look at Rashi. Rashi says, 3 lines from the bottom of the page, Hezekah dabai is shiny. Sha'adam ose beveso divrei atzina. This is for modesty purposes. Lav dafka for Hezekah. For Hezek Re'iyah, Shmei Hezek or not Shmei Hezek. You gotta knock before you enter. People could be walking past a window in their home. A woman could have her hair uncovered. These things are. You have to be careful. You got to be careful. It's both people's responsibilities. That's her responsibility to stay covered, and it's his responsibility to build his walls in a way where he's not able to easily see into someone's house. Question number 6. We are 6 lines from the bottom of the page on Beis Amud Beis. About to finish the first blot of 175. Toshma, the Amar of Nachman. I don't know if that was motivating or overwhelming. I don't know, because as it came out of my mouth, it not good. As it came out of my mouth, it hurt my soul a little bit, but didn't know if it was good or but small. Yeah, yeah. Well, not yet, but yeah. Well, let's go to Sandwich Club. I treated myself to Great Chicago today. I had a wrap 24 hours ago. I couldn't even wait. All right, the 6th question against our Havamina. The Gemara said earlier in the page that Hezek is Lav Shmei Hezek. We've asked 5 questions and gotten out of all of them. Here's number 6, Toshma. The Amar Reb Nachman, Amar Shmuel, Gag hasamuch lechatzer chavero. My roof and your chatzer are on the same level. So imagine you and I have homes on the slope of a mountain. So my home has a roof like here. This is my roof, okay? And your house has a chatzer. This is your house. So your house is here, and it has a field, and your field bleeds into my roof. Okay, this is my house down here. I live down here, but my roof and your chutzner. So what are my obligations but of putting up a wall on my roof and your chutzner? Like what's that because they're on the same exact height. That's what the Gemara is discussing. Gags hasamuch lechutzner chavero osalo ma'ake gvodal amos. Oh, so the guy on the roof has to put up a ma'ake. So isn't that because of Hezek Re'iyah? Why isn't it? Why wouldn't we have said it's because of the classical puzzle? Well, it's fascinating why the Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara says, "Shiny hasam to amar le bal chatzer le balagag." The person who owns the chatzer can say to the guy whose roof is adjacent to the chatzer, "You and I have very different usages of our properties." Ledidi, when we're talking about me, I own the chatzer. Kvi ali tashmishi. That's where I live. But I function outside my house all day. Back in the day, they did a lot of things in their chatzer. They would cook. They did a lot of things there. It wasn't like our front yards too. In the summer, everybody's out. They're barbecuing. They're sitting on the swing. They're playing soccer. They're mowing the lawn. How often do I go on my roof? Never. So for me, says the Baal HaChatzer, that's where I live. L'didcha lo kvilach tashmishtecha. That's not a normal place to do work. And v'lo yodana b'hai idna slika v'asis. I don't know when you're going to be up on the roof. The itztana minach, that I have to become tzanu in front of you. I'm allowed to be outside in my private property without you being able to see me. So you need to put up a wall on your roof to prevent yourself from seeing me, not because of Hezek Re'iyah Shmei Hezek or not, just al's regular tznius. That's what the Gemara says. Now, all of this has been approach number 1. We had this Havamina that our Gemara was initially saying that the word mechitza meant Guda, it meant a wall. Then we switched and said maybe it's plukta, just a separation. And now we're going to see version number 2 of this. We started out our Gemara on Daf Beis Amud Aleph saying Savrua Mai Mechitza Guda. Now on the top of Gimel Amud Aleph, this blot, it looks long. It's going to be very short. We're skipping a lot of it. We're going to be stopping at the first of the middle width lines. The Gemara says Lishna Achrina Amri La. Some say that the Gemara should open like this: Savrua Mai Mechitza. What is the mechitza of our Mishnah? Instead of starting with what we said before was good, and now we're going to flip it and say mechitza. My mechitza plukta. Dichsi vatehi mechitza soida. Becheven deratzu bonus akosel bal korchan. So you're right that the word mechitza only means plukta, separation. But once we have a ratzon to build a wall, I can force you to do so. Alma, why? Because Hezek Re'iyah Shmei Hezek. Then the Gemara just flips the script. This whole thing is just an invert of the first approach. Gimel Amud Aleph, 5 lines down. Ema my mechitza, says the Gemara. What is it? What is another version of a mechitza? We don't have to say that it's a plukta. Perhaps we can say it's a guda. It's a wall. Detanya should be detanya. That's the correction on the side here. Yeah, detanya. Mechitza sakarem shenifritza. Remember, we saw again. It's a perfect invert of before. Says the Gemara, if I'm the Bala Karen and the wall broke down, Omer Logdor, I can tell you, the weak guy, go fix it. Nifritza Omer Logdor, if it breaks again, you got to fix it again. So there we see that in that case of Kilaim, that if you don't fix the wall, you're chayiv. The time of the Ratzu. And the fact is that they just wanted to build a wall. Hello, Ratzu and Mechayiv and also. But if they didn't want to build a wall, they wouldn't have to. Alma, what do we see? Hezek Ria Lav Shmei Hezek. So again, we're a little confounded over here. We don't exactly know how to read our Mishnah in regards to the rules of Hezek Ria Shmei Hezek and Lav Shmei Hezek. This is a sugya in Rishonim that takes a lot of time. This is a big machlokas. Just in regards to the most simple understanding of our Mishnah, but the funny part is that when you read our Mishnah, we didn't even know that it was about Hezek Shmei Hezek or not. It's not evident. It just looks like we're just talking about regular rules of building walls. So difficult Gemara. The Gemara says 10 lines down on Gimel Amud Aleph Yihachi. If what you're saying is true that Hezek Re'iyah is Lav Shmei Hezek, if that's true, so then Bonin Es HaKosel, why does it say Bonin Es HaKosel? It should have said Bonin Oso. If you're saying that it's Shmei Hezek Re'iyah is Lav Shmei Hezek, and that really Mechitza in our wall and our Mishnah means a Guda, means a wall, then I don't need you to say Kosel. I know what it is. I know Mechitza is a wall. Don't tell me Kosel. I got it. So the Gemara says, as we saw before, Bonin Oso Me Boile, Alamai, it must be Plugta. That really we're saying that it's talking about a separation and not a wall. That's what mechitza means in our Mishnah. Says the Gemara to that. If you're going to say it's a plugta, hachi sheratu lasos mechitza sheratu lachatzos mi boile. Why are you using the word mechitza? It's not a mechitza. Use the word lachatzos just to create a separation. So that's what we should have done. Says the Gemara. Kida amri inchi ta navid plugta. The Gemara says it's just the way people talk. People say, let's put up a machitza. It's just the way people talk, and therefore that's not a problem. It says the Gemara, "Vi hezek re'iyah shmei hezek." If hezek re'iyah is shmei hezek, if really looking at someone's item can cause damage, my irya ratzu. Who cares what your feelings are? Afilu lo ratzu nami, because it's dangerous. So the Gemara says, third of the way down, Amar Abasi, Amar Rav Yochanan, mishenasnu kshe'ein ba din chaluka v'hu deratu. What? What? What did I say? Oh, mishenasnu? It's good someone's listening. I was just sharing with someone today that, and I use your name, Mom. I was in a meeting today. I dropped your name. No. I was at a meeting in the OU, and I was talking about the things I make mistakes in. I'm like, oh, I do it every night in Daf Yomi, and David always corrects me. They asked me if I was embarrassed. I said, no, one drop. Not even. I know, it's serious. I got some people there. It's true. I don't know who else is there.
I was, but I heard Mishinasnu versus Mishinasenu.
That's bad Hebrew on my part.
The videotape, but I think.
Yeah. And that was just poor. I just spaced out. That's really what happened. You guys think I pay attention when I do this. I do not. Just, oh my gosh. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
There are different ways to vocalize the Hebrew, but it could be in some.
Not that way. You're being Malamed Schus in a place not to be Malamed Schus. It's just yeah. Let's do this the right way. So it says the Gemara, what's the reason why Rotze matters over here? Amar Ravasi, Amar Rav Yochanan, Mishnah Seinu, Kshe'ein Badin Chaluka. The case of our Mishnah, we're making an ukimta. Our Mishnah is dealing with a case where when we split, the resulting size of the field is too small to do the Chaluka. It's not 4 by 8. It's 4 by 7, 4 by 6, 4 by 4, 3 by 2, whatever, tiny. It's a small field. And therefore, Behu Deratu, our Mishnah is talking about Rotze. That's why Rotze matters. Because we're talking about a very small field. It's not subject to Chaluka. My Kamash Malon, what does this come to teach us? Do you think it comes to teach us that when it's too small, that if they want to, they can split? We know that already. Tanina, we've already learned this, or we will learn this. The Gemara over here says, the Maseches Shas says we're going to learn this on Daf Yud Aleph. Eimosai, when is all of this true? Again, we're out of context because we're not looking on Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. So the Gemara says, Eimosai bizman she'ein shneim rotzim. This applies when both of us don't want to. Aval bizman she'shneim rotzim afilu pachos mikan cholken. Even if the field is less than 4 by 8. It's 4 by 7, 4 by 6, 3 by 2, 1 by 1. Even if it's tiny, then we are going to be cholken, says the Gemara. But I already know that. So why do we have it twice? Why were we just okim our Mishnah to say that it was talking about pachos midin chaluka? Yet we already have another Mishnah on Yud Aleph that says the same exact thing. Says the Gemara, Ime Hasam, if I would have only had the Gemara from Daf Yud Aleph, Havamina filu pachos mikan b'mesipas be'alma. I might have thought that if we were splitting a field that was less than 4 by 8, I might have thought that when we agree to put up a wall, I can just do b'mesipas be'alma, just the little pylons, and that's sufficient. Kamash mulan hacha, the kosel. The reason why our Mishnah is here is because our Mishnah talks about a kosel, is to teach us dafka that we're talking about a kosel. So that's why we needed both. Okay. If you're saying that our Mishnah teaches more than the Mishnah in Yud Aleph, just teach the Mishnah on Daf Beis, and I don't need two Mishnayos. Of course, that's not going to be the result. Seifa is Trichale. We actually need to have our Mishnah, even though it's more informative. We also need the less informative Mishnah from Yud Aleph. Why? Because of the Seifa of that Mishnah. What does the Seifa there say? The Kisvei HaKodesh, Afal Pi Sheshneim Rotzim Lo Yachloku. You and I have a Megillah. And let's say that the first 4 prakim, they end at the bottom of a cloth. No problem. I'm going to go downstairs and get a pair of scissors. And I'm going to cut the cloth right in the middle. Shalom Yisrael. We'll split. Yachloku. So the halacha is that's a bizayon. Halachically speaking, that's a bizayon. And you're not allowed to do that. That's why we are not allowed to be yachloku in this particular case. Take a look at Rashi, 10 lines down. The Ramasal v'kisvei HaKodesh, Sefer Torah. Shu bekrach echad. V'chein neviim u'ksuvim ha'ksuvim begilyon k'sefer Torah. Fascinating insight. Look at this. Sefer Torah shehu bikrach echad. It's not 2 atzei chayim. It's wrapped on 1 eitz chayim, which is not very practical when you're in Brachis. So I don't know what they did, but that's what it says. That's what Rashi says. It was on one side. By Megillah, and by Megillah's Esther, that's not a right at all. That's freestanding. But everything we have is with 2 atzei chayim. But l'chora, that's not ladina. We do it because it's practical. It's very hard to do hagba, but it's just fascinating Rashi. I don't know, just very interesting. Sefer Torah bekrach echad. Skip from where we are to 5 lines before the wide lines. B'mayu kimta lemas nisen. I'll give you a moment to find that. B'mayu kimta lemas nisen. We just established that our Mishnah, because our Mishnah is talking about rotze, and rotze, your feelings shouldn't matter with hezek re'iyah. Your feelings usually don't matter. They shouldn't matter here. So b'mayu kimta lemas nisen b'she'ein bodin chaluka. Says the Gemara, fine. I b'she'ein bodin chaluka ki rotzu may have it. The fact that you want to do this shouldn't make the deal binding that we need a wall. I can always back out because hezek re'iyah doesn't really apply in this case. There's no chiyuv to build a wall when the field is less than a certain size. This is an interesting lumdus. Like, does that mean that hezek re'iyah doesn't apply in a small field? Is the field too small to be shaykh by hezek re'iyah? What happens to hezek re'iyah when we say that ein bodin chaluka? If the field is 4x6 and it's growing gorgeous, luscious corn, but it's too small for a chaluka, so no wall. But if it's hezek re'iyah, it's hezek re'iyah. If it's not hezek re'iyah, it's not hezek re'iyah. What does the chaluka have to do? Okay, so again, rishonim. It's not for now, but it's an interesting question. So, and anyways, the Gemara says if it's ein badin chaluka and there's no chiyuv to put up a wall, then I can always back out. Amar Rabasi, Amar Rav Yochanan, shekanu miyadan. We're talking about where there was a kinyan from that person's hand. And the commentaries here explain that we are talking about a kinyan chalipin over here. That we pick up the piece of paper, we pick up whatever it is, to say we hereby agree to build a wall. Says the Gemara, v'chikanu miyadan my habit, kinyan dvarim ba'almahu. You made a kinyan chalipin over nothing. It's not like you picked up an item of use. We're talking about splitting a field. You didn't pick up a hammer, you picked up a pen. So the Gemara says, Beshekanu miyadan beruchos. You were very specific about the direction that you were focusing on. I'm going to take the east. Take a look at Rashi, beruchos. Rashi is a third of the way down, a quarter of the way down the Rashi's, but Zebor lo chelik mizrachi, Zebor lo chelik ma'aravi, Bekanu miyadam, ume'ata nikne chelik mizrachi, lazeh, ve'in lazeh chelik bo. So that's when we were being very specific about our directions. Rav Ashi gives a second answer. Rav Ashi Omar, that what were we talking about? B'shekanu miyadan? Nothing at all. Kigon shahalach zeh besoch shelo v'hichzik. You made a chazaka in your property. You hit the fence in, you took down a fence, you made a change. And this we've seen before in Shas, that if you make a change, it's yours, v'zeh besoch shelo v'hichzik. And that is considered enough to make a kinyan, which is why, even though our Mishnah was created with an ukimza that we're talking about a case where there's less than a din chalukah, it's less than 4x8. How do we make a kinyan that's lasting? Machlokes amoraim. Number one is that there's a kinyan chalipin with some teeth to it because it's either mizrach mar, we each pick a field, or no, like Rav Ashi says, that I went into my field and I took a hammer and I knocked something into the ground. I made some kind of change in the ground. So that's how we would explain our Mishnah. We're going to stop right here at Makom Shenagu. We'll pick up on Shabbos Yimir Tzashem an hour before Mincha. As you can see, Daf Daled is a Zafta Gadaf. We're going to do as much as we can, but don't worry, because Daf Hey is short. Wishing you all a beautiful night.